Hey grade 6s, I'm making this video to help you out with your assignment on reference. A bunch of you have been handing that in and showing me that you really understand it, and a few of you have been telling me that you're a little bit confused about it. So a referent is an object that helps us visualize a certain measurement so that we can do a better job of estimating it. And I've put together a collection of household objects to help me demonstrate this concept. I want to start with the idea of a referent for 1 millimeter. So we're looking for something that's going to help you visualize what 1 millimeter is. I have my ruler here to measure out 1 millimeter. It's super small, and we're going to look at a couple of things that might help us with that. A common thing that people suggest for a referent for 1 millimeter is a dime. Now when I look at that, I think it's actually a bit too thick, so it's not my favorite referent for a millimeter. Something that I actually like better is the width of a cereal box. So if I put this cereal box up against my ruler, I can see that it's pretty much exactly 1 millimeter thick. So that for me is a pretty good referent for what a millimeter is. That just kind of helps me picture in my head how big a millimeter is. We're going to look at a centimeter. I couldn't find too many references around the house for 1 centimeter, but one that works really well for me is a Sharpie marker. So if we zoom in on this Sharpie marker and put it next to the ruler, we can see that it's pretty much exactly 1 centimeter thick. So I really like that for a referent for 1 centimeter. So that's going to help me visualize how thick it is. That's how big a centimeter is. For a referent for a meter, I have relocated. This is my meter stick that I made. It's made out of an old popcorn box. I really like for a referent for 1 meter the height of a doorknob. Most doorknobs are pretty much exactly a meter high. You have to be careful because not every single doorknob is, but it's a pretty good referent for most doorknobs. You can also try the width of a door, which you can see isn't quite a meter, but it's pretty close. But again, not all doors are the same size, so I would say test it out with a couple of doors in your house to see if that referent works for you. For my referent for a kilometer, I've gone online to look at Google Maps, and I decided to search up Cedar Hill Middle School because we all know where that is. And then I kind of thought in my head, I thought I'm not totally sure what is a kilometer away from Cedar Hill Middle School. So the first thing I tried out was Hillside Shopping Center. I decided to see how far away that was. When I did that, I found out that it's actually 2.5 kilometers away. So I realized that that's actually too far and Hillside Shopping Center is not going to work. So I thought what might be kind of close to halfway in between, and I thought Doncaster Elementary. And I thought this is a good one because a lot of you went to that school. But if you didn't go to that school, you might remember that when we walked down to Cedar Hill Rec Center to play squash, we walked past a school, and that is Doncaster there. And then it turns out that that's actually exactly 1 kilometer. So that worked out really well for a referent for 1 kilometer. And if I'm trying to picture how far a kilometer is, I'm going to imagine I'm walking from our school, Cedar Hill, down to Doncaster Elementary. Okay, the next referent I was looking for was an inch. And I tried a few things before I found one that I was really happy with. But the first thing I tried was my headphones here. And I measured that and I saw that it was a little bit less than 1 inch. So I thought, it's okay, but I'd like something a little bit closer. You might have really similar headphones, so that might be something that you try out. That might be worth looking at. The next thing I decided to try was I took my coconut milk that I drink on a regular basis and I thought I would measure the lid of it. And when I measured that lid, I saw that it's pretty close to exactly 1 inch. So that's a good one, but I thought I'd see what else I could find. I tried a roll of tape, and the roll of tape worked really well because it was almost exactly 1 inch. But what I didn't like about it is that not all rolls of tape are the same. So I thought, it's good, but I might get confused with the wrong size of tape roll. So the next thing I tried was the charger for my MacBook. And I tried out that, and that one's pretty close to exactly 1 inch, so that's a really good one. Another thing that I decided to try was I took one of these little wall plugs for charging my iPhone. And it turns out that that one's like pretty exactly perfect for 1 inch. So I think I'm going to stick with this one here as my referent for 1 inch, is how wide my iPhone charger is. So the next thing I wanted to find a referent for was a foot. And I know that a foot is exactly 12 inches. So I'm just gonna kind of hold my thumb there on my ruler for where 12 inches are. The first thing that I tried to measure was a paper towel roll. And when I measured that, I found that it was 11 inches long. And I thought, that's pretty good, but it's not quite there, so I'm going to try something else. So the next thing I decided to try was a binder. When I measured my regular size binder, it was 11.5 inches long. And I thought, that's pretty good, I'll see what else I can find. So I decided to try an egg carton. When I measured the egg carton, it was also about 11.5 inches long, so I decided to stick with the binder because I think it's a little bit more familiar and easier to picture in my head. After thinking about a foot, I thought about a yard, and I know a yard is 3 feet, which is about the same as a meter, so I just decided that I was going to stick with the same referent for a yard and a meter. And then the last one that I wanted a referent for was a mile. And I know a mile is about the size of 1.5 kilometers, so I just figured if I walked all the way from Cedar Hill to Doncaster and then halfway back, that would be a mile. And so that was what I decided to use for my reference for 1 yard and for 1 mile. I hope this video has been helpful. If you have any more questions, please feel free to send me an email, and good luck with your work.